Okay, we're going to talk about the surface area and volume of cones in this video. And a cone is like a pyramid, and that's how we're going to think of this. First thing I have here is think of it as a circular pyramid, which is similar to how we thought of a cylinder. A cylinder was a circular prism, so we can think of a cone as a circular pyramid. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to swap out B and P for these formulas so that they're more specific for a circle, because that's the shape of the base. Now remember, your area of a circle is pi r squared, which in this case is B. That's the base. P is the perimeter of a circle, which is circumference, and its formula is d pi. Alright? Slant height is still the same. Okay, it's that distance on the outside. We'll get to that in a second. I'll explain how it comes into play. But slant height is the distance outside, and height is the height from the point of your cone all the way to the center of the circle. So for surface area, B, we said that's pi r squared plus P d pi, and then the slant height, L. So there's your surface area for a cone. Pi r squared plus d pi slant height, d pi L. For volume, the 1/3 doesn't change, it's not a variable, but the base is pi r squared, and then we have the height. So we have pi r squared h and 1/3. That's your volume of a cone. Alright, now we've made them more specific for the shapes that we've got. Okay, we're not using the generic formula anymore. We're making the formula specific again, so it's specific for a circle, which is the base on a cone. So for our example here, we're going to determine the surface area and the volume of the cone. We're going to do both. We're going to start with surface area. Surface area is pi r squared plus d pi slant height. So look at what our figure has. We've got 3 here, which is our radius. We have 17, which is the height. We don't know L. Okay, so we need to figure that out. Remember what we did with a pyramid. We used the Pythagorean theorem. We can do the same thing here. Use Pythagorean theorem to find the slant height. Height is 17, and this is 3. So we will do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. C squared again is the slant height. That's the same spot. So a is 17 squared, b squared, 3 squared equals c squared. 17 times 17 is 289. 3 squared is 9 equals c squared. 289 plus 9 gives us 298. Square root that, we'll round this to the tens place. Square root of 298 is 17.3. Okay, now it's typical that you'll have to find that when you're finding surface area, so make sure you remember Pythagorean theorem to find slant height. So let's plug this in. That's the slant height. So we use 3.14 for pi. R is 3 plus D is twice R, so D is 6, 3 plus 3, 3.14, and the slant height we found to be 17.3. We're going to do this in 2 parts, just like we did with a cylinder. We found one of them, we found the other, and then we added the 2 together. So let's do this first one. Ends up being 3.14 times 9, which is 28.26. Second one is 6 times 3.14 times 17.3. We're going to put that in the calculator. And when we do that, we get 325.932. Now, if they give you a long decimal, copy the whole decimal and we'll round it at the end. Okay? We'll add these 2 together. So 28.26 plus 325.932 gives us 354.192 units squared, because we were talking about surface area. Okay? Now, surface area is more difficult than volume because there's two parts. You usually have to find the slant height if they're giving you a tricky problem. So pay attention to that because that one's more difficult than volume. Volume is 1/3 pi r squared h. Well, we know everything we need. 1/3 times 3.14 times 3 squared, because our radius is 3, and the height was 17. They gave us all of that to start with. Okay? Now we're going to use that same shortcut we did for pyramids. We're going to multiply all this together first. 3 squared is 9, so 9 times 3.14 times 17. We get 480.42 times 1/3. Now we're going to do 480.42, and we're just going to divide by 3. And we get 160.14 units cubed because it's volume. Okay? Remember that multiplying by 1/3 is the same thing as dividing by 3. We're going to use that hint, that helpful little shortcut, so that we don't have to multiply by a fraction because that confuses some people. So just divide it by 3. Do everything else and then divide by 3. Now I did notice I made a mistake up here. I said we were going to take this to the hundredths place, so this should be 354.19. Okay, we're going to need to get rid of, since that 2 is less than 5, it's not going to round up. We leave it as 0.19. Okay? So that's how we find surface area and volume of cones. Cones are pretty easy because the formula is more specific. I think cones are easier than pyramids, and cylinders are easier than prisms because they're more specific. You know that you need the radius and the height. Those are the only two things you need to have. Okay, you really have to solve the problem. All right? So if you have any questions, make sure you rewatch this. Watch the example again, see if you have any questions. If you still have questions, bring them to class next time and we'll get them answered.